What are you doing out here, buddy?
Is there an issue, officer?
Yeah, sounds like drug talk. Taking them down? I know what that means.
You sure you want to guess instead of asking?
Don't get smart. ID before this gets worse.
Lawrence Crawford, District Attorney, you're fired.
90 days on the job. That's all Officer Kevin Marshall had when he approached a black man outside the Franklin County Courthouse and accused him of drug dealing. 90 days of training. 90 days of building assumptions. 90 days of learning to see threats where none existed. The man was on a phone call, pacing, discussing the operation, and making arrests today. Marshall heard drug code. The FBI agent on the other end of that call heard their joint task force briefing with District Attorney Lawrence Crawford, the first black DA in the county's 140-year history, the prosecutor who had sent 3 dirty cops to prison, the man whose press conference was scheduled to begin in 15 minutes on those same courthouse steps. Marshall's career lasted 93 days. Crawford's settlement was $12 million. And the footage, Bodycam, courthouse cameras, FBI recording, showed exactly why. The Franklin County Courthouse had stood on Main Street for 140 years. Limestone columns, granite steps worn smooth by generations of attorneys, defendants, and citizens seeking justice. The building had witnessed trials that made national headlines, sentences that changed lives, and verdicts that defined what the county stood for. Lawrence Crawford had climbed those steps hundreds of times. As a public defender, arguing for clients who couldn't afford representation. As a federal prosecutor, building cases against drug networks that poisoned communities. As the elected district attorney, carrying the weight of every charging decision, every plea negotiation, every trial that put dangerous people behind bars. 18 years in law. Harvard Law School, top 5% of his class. 9 years with the U.S. Attorney's Office, where he had prosecuted over 200 major felony cases, including the largest drug trafficking ring in state history. Then the switch, public defender to prosecutor, because he wanted to clean up the streets the right way. First black DA in Franklin County's history. Elected with 67% of the vote. Re-elected once already. Known for his tough-on-corruption stance. 3 dirty cops sent to prison in the past 2 years alone. The kind of prosecutor that criminals feared and honest officers respected. This Tuesday morning, he had arrived at 8:30 a.m., 30 minutes before his scheduled press conference announcing a major indictment. The target, a drug operation that had flooded the county with fentanyl for 18 months. The FBI had been his partner on the investigation. Today was the culmination. Crawford wore a casual blazer over an open-collared shirt. His suit was hanging in his office. He planned to change before the cameras rolled. The morning was cool, the air crisp. He stepped outside to take a call he didn't want overheard by staff. Special Agent Denise Morrison was on the line from the FBI field office. "We're ready on our end," Morrison said. "Arrest teams are staged. Warrants are signed. We move at 10. Good." Crawford paced near the courthouse steps, his voice low but energized. "The press conference will set the tone. I'll announce the indictments. You'll handle the operational details. By noon, we'll have them all in custody. 16 targets. Largest bust in county history. Taking them down today." Crawford allowed himself a small smile. This is what the work looks like. He didn't notice the patrol car that had slowed at the corner. He didn't see the rookie officer watching him through the windshield. He didn't know that his words, the operation, taking them down, we'll have them all, were being interpreted as something very different by someone who had been on the job for 90 days. Officer Kevin Marshall stepped out of his cruiser. His Axon Body 2 activated automatically. The wide-angle lens captured the courthouse, the steps, the black man in the casual blazer pacing with a phone pressed to his ear. Marshall's hand moved to his belt. Not his weapon. Not yet. But close. He started walking toward the steps. Crawford was still talking to Agent Morrison when he noticed the uniform approaching. He lowered his voice. "Hold on. I've got a local unit coming my way. At the courthouse. Right outside." Marshall closed the distance in aggressive strides. His body cam captured every step. The limestone columns, the worn granite, the black man who had stopped pacing and was now watching him approach. "Sir." Marshall's voice carried the clipped authority of someone who had practiced it in a mirror. "Step away from the building. What are you doing here?" Crawford kept the phone at his ear. Agent Morrison was silent on the other end, listening. "I work here." "Work here." Marshall's eyes moved across Crawford's blazer, his casual shirt, his lack of visible identification. Doing what? I'm the district attorney. The words hung in the morning air. Marshall's expression didn't change, didn't flicker with recognition, didn't shift toward the deference that courthouse staff showed Crawford every day. Instead, he smiled. Yeah, right. And I'm the mayor. Crawford's voice remained level. 18 years of courtroom composure, of hostile witnesses, of defendants who screamed threats during sentencing. A rookie officer with an attitude didn't register on the scale. Officer, I'm Lawrence Crawford, District Attorney of Franklin County. My office is on the 3rd floor of this building. I have a press conference in. He checked his watch. 12 minutes. I know what you're doing. Marshall stepped closer. The Bodycam frame tightened. We've been watching this corner. Deals happen right here, in plain sight. You think standing by the courthouse makes you look legit? I'm sorry. The phone call. The operation. Taking them down. We'll have them all. Marshall's hand moved to his cuffs. That's drug code. I've been trained on this. Agent Morrison's voice came through the phone, loud enough for Marshall to hear. Mr. Crawford, is everything all right? Who's that? Marshall demanded. Your supplier? Your runner. That's Special Agent Denise Morrison. FBI. We're coordinating a joint operation that I'm announcing this morning. Marshall laughed. The Bodycam recorded the sound. Dismissive, contemptuous, certain. FBI. Sure. You got any more stories? Officer, I need your badge number. You don't need anything except to put that phone down and show me some ID. Crawford lowered the phone slightly, but didn't hang up. The FBI line remained open. Agent Morrison recording every word on her end. The call automatically logged in federal systems. My identification is in my office. 3rd floor. I'm happy to walk you there. You're not going anywhere. Marshall reached for Crawford's arm. Hands where I can see them. Don't touch me. That a threat? That's a statement of my rights. I've identified myself. I've explained my presence. I've offered to verify everything I've told you. You have no probable cause to detain me. Marshall's jaw tightened. He keyed his shoulder mic. Dispatch, this is Marshall. I need backup at the courthouse steps. I've got a suspicious individual refusing to cooperate. Possible drug activity. Subject is becoming aggressive. Crawford heard every word. So did Agent Morrison on the open line. So did the courthouse security cameras positioned above the entrance, recording the scene from 3 angles. I'm not aggressive. I'm not refusing to cooperate. And you've just made a false statement to dispatch that will be part of your disciplinary file. Keep talking. Marshall unclipped his handcuffs. You're under arrest for obstruction and resisting. I'm not resisting. You will be. At the windows above, faces had begun to appear. Attorneys arriving for morning dockets. Paralegals carrying file boxes. Court clerks who knew exactly who the black man on the steps was. Agent Morrison's voice cut through the phone. Mr. Crawford, I'm recording this call. FBI agents are being dispatched to your location now. Marshall heard it. He didn't care. Turn around. Hands behind your back. Crawford didn't move. His composure didn't crack. You're making a mistake you won't recover from. We'll see who's making the mistake. The cuffs came out. Metal glinted in the morning sunlight. Marshall held them in his left hand, his right reaching for Crawford's wrist. Last chance. Turn around. Crawford kept his hands at his sides. His phone remained in his grip, the FBI line still open, Agent Morrison's breathing audible through the speaker. Officer Marshall. Crawford's voice carried the same tone he used when addressing juries during closing arguments. Calm, measured, designed to be remembered. I'm going to state this clearly for every recording device currently capturing this moment. Marshall paused. The Bodycam recorded his hesitation. I am Lawrence Crawford. I am the elected district attorney of Franklin County. I have served in this position for 4 years. Before that, I spent 9 years as a federal prosecutor. I have an office in this building. I have a press conference scheduled on these steps in 10 minutes. I am not resisting. I am not obstructing. I am standing on public property outside my own workplace. He raised the phone slightly. The woman on this call is Special Agent Denise Morrison of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. She has been listening to this entire encounter. This call is being recorded and logged in federal systems. When you are asked later what happened here, there will be no ambiguity. Marshall's face reddened. The Bodycam caught the flush spreading across his cheeks, the look of someone whose certainty was being challenged by facts he didn't want to process. Nice speech. He grabbed Crawford's wrist. Turn around. Crawford didn't resist. He didn't pull away. He allowed his wrist to be taken, his arm to be moved behind his back. Passive compliance. The clearest possible demonstration that whatever happened next was Marshall's choice, not his. The first cuff clicked around his wrist. Above them, the courthouse windows had filled with faces. A paralegal had her phone raised, recording through the glass. Two attorneys stood frozen in the lobby doorway, watching the scene unfold. A court clerk was already running toward the stairs, heading for the DA's office. The news crew setting up for the press conference, cameras, lights, microphone stands, had noticed the commotion. A producer was pointing. A cameraman was swinging his equipment toward the steps. Marshall reached for Crawford's other wrist. "You have the right to remain silent." "Detective Webb." Crawford's voice cut across the Miranda warning. "Third floor. Criminal Division. Call him." "Shut up. He'll verify everything I've told you." "I said shut up. He'll also explain that you're currently handcuffing the man who signs off on every prosecution in this county." Marshall's hand stopped. The second cuff dangled from Crawford's wrist, unlatched. Sirens approached. Backup was arriving. "You called for backup," Crawford said quietly. "Good. Ask whoever arrives to identify me. Any officer who's been here longer than 90 days will know exactly who I am." "How do you know I've been here 90 days? Your badge number is in the 8400 series. We issue those to recruits. Your uniform still has the sheen of new fabric. And you're attempting to arrest the district attorney outside his own courthouse, which means no one with experience has taught you the most basic rule of this job." "What rule?" "Know who you're dealing with before you put yourself in a position you can't escape." The patrol car pulled up. Detective Marcus Webb stepped out, 15 years on the force, Criminal Division, the officer who had worked 50-plus cases with Lawrence Crawford over 4 years. He took 3 steps toward the scene. Then he stopped. His face went white. Webb stood frozen on the sidewalk. His eyes moved from Marshall to the man in handcuffs to the courthouse windows filled with watching faces. "Marshall." His voice was strained. "What the hell are you doing?" "Detective, I've got a suspect refusing to identify himself, making threats, claiming to be." "Do you know who this is?" Marshall's mouth opened. Nothing came out. "That's Lawrence Crawford, the district attorney. He's the reason you have a job." The Bodycam captured Marshall's expression as the information landed. The blood draining from his face. The slight backward step. The dawning comprehension of catastrophic error. "That's not. Nobody told me. His picture is in the lobby. It's on the website. It's been on the news for 4 years. He wasn't dressed like." "Take off the cuffs." Webb's voice dropped to a whisper that the Bodycam barely captured. "Right now? And don't say another word." Marshall's hands trembled as he removed the cuffs. Crawford brought his arms forward, rubbing his wrist once. A gesture the cameras recorded, a gesture that would appear in every news broadcast, every lawsuit filing, every training video that followed. "Mr. Crawford." Webb positioned himself between Marshall and the district attorney. "I apologize for it. Save it for the report." Crawford's composure hadn't cracked. His voice remained level. "I want his Bodycam footage preserved. I want the dispatch recording pulled. And I want his supervisor at my office within the hour." "Of course." Crawford raised his phone. Agent Morrison was still on the line. "Denise, you got all that?" "Every word. Recorded and logged. Our agents are 2 minutes out. Tell them to stand down. I'll handle this locally." He ended the call. He looked at Marshall, still pale, still silent, still processing the magnitude of what he had done. "Officer Marshall, how long have you been on the job?" The rookie's voice cracked. 3 months. 3 months. And in that time, no one taught you to verify identity before making accusations? No one explained that the corner you've been watching is directly outside the county's primary law enforcement facility? No one showed you what the district attorney looks like? No answer. "I prosecute officers who abuse their authority. I've sent 3 of them to prison in the past 2 years. Did you know that?" Marshall's head shook slightly. "You accused me of drug dealing because I was black, wearing casual clothes, and talking about an operation. You ignored every explanation I offered. You called for backup with false information. You put handcuffs on me despite knowing I hadn't committed any crime." Crawford straightened his blazer. He looked at the news crew that had captured the entire aftermath on camera, footage that would lead every broadcast by noon. "Your Bodycam recorded everything. The FBI recorded my phone call. The courthouse security system has multiple angles. Every attorney in this building watched through those windows. He paused. I was going to hold a press conference this morning announcing the largest drug bust in county history. Instead, I'll be announcing something else. Webb stepped forward. Mr. Crawford, if there's anything, there is. Keep him away from the public until Internal Affairs collects him. And Detective, sir, pull his hiring file. I want to know how someone like this got through vetting. Crawford walked toward the courthouse entrance. The attorneys in the doorway parted. The clerk who had run upstairs met him with his suit jacket and a look of horror. Sir, I couldn't believe. Get my communications director. We're rescheduling the press conference. Same time, different topic. He climbed the worn granite steps. The same steps he had climbed for 18 years. The same steps where a rookie officer had just tried to arrest him. The doors closed behind him. Marshall stood alone on the sidewalk, his career ending in real time. Internal Affairs collected Marshall within 90 minutes. The Bodycam footage was downloaded, preserved, and flagged before noon. The FBI recording arrived at the DA's office by 2 p.m., authenticated, time-stamped, devastating. But the footage only told part of the story. The investigation would reveal the rest. Officer Kevin Marshall had been hired 90 days earlier through a process that should have screened him out. His application contained gaps that weren't questioned. His references weren't properly verified. His social media presence, which any competent background investigator would have examined, contained content that disqualified him from wearing a badge. The posts were discovered within 48 hours of the incident. 3 years of Facebook and Instagram content that Marshall had apparently forgotten was public. Jokes about cleaning up the streets, with imagery that left no ambiguity about which streets and which people he meant. Shared memes from accounts that trafficked in explicit racism. Comments on news stories about police shootings that blamed victims and celebrated officers. One post, shared 6 months before his hiring, featured a photo of a Confederate flag with the caption, "Heritage, not hate. Unless you give me a reason." Another, posted during his academy training, read, "Learning how to spot the real criminals. Hint, they don't look like me." The department's vetting process had missed all of it. The investigation expanded. The hiring officer was interviewed. The background investigator was deposed. The chain of approvals that had allowed Marshall onto the force was documented in excruciating detail. The failures were systemic. References listed on Marshall's application had never been contacted. Previous employers hadn't been verified. The social media review, required by department policy, had been checked off as completed without anyone actually performing it. 2 supervisors were demoted for negligent hiring practices. The background investigator was terminated. The department's entire vetting protocol was suspended pending external review. Marshall himself was terminated within the week. The grounds: conduct unbecoming, false statements to dispatch, unlawful detention, violation of civil rights. His union representative reviewed the evidence and declined to contest the firing. The FBI opened its own investigation. Deprivation of rights under color of law. False arrest. Filing false reports. The same charges that Crawford had used to send 3 officers to prison now pointed at the rookie who had tried to arrest him. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Crawford cooperated with every investigation. He provided statements, reviewed footage, identified the precise moments where Marshall's conduct crossed from unprofessional to criminal. His analysis was clinical, methodical, the work of a prosecutor building a case rather than a victim seeking revenge. Agent Morrison testified before the grand jury. Her recording captured Marshall's accusations, his dismissal of Crawford's identity, his false statements to dispatch, his decision to apply handcuffs despite knowing he had no legal basis. The indictment came down 3 weeks after the incident. Federal civil rights charges. Marshall would face trial in the same courthouse where he had tried to make an arrest. Crawford recused himself from the prosecution. Conflict of interest. But he sat in the gallery for the arraignment, watching the rookie who had laughed at his identification stand before a federal magistrate and hear the charges read aloud. Marshall pleaded not guilty. His attorney requested bail. The magistrate looked at the evidence summary. The bodycam footage. The FBI recording. The social media posts. The documented pattern of racial bias that had been visible to anyone who bothered to look. Bail denied. The defendant poses a demonstrated risk of harm to the community he swore to protect. Marshall was led from the courtroom in handcuffs. Crawford watched without expression. The federal trial lasted 4 days. The evidence left no room for defense. Prosecutors played the Bodycam footage. They played Agent Morrison's recording. They displayed Marshall's social media posts on screens large enough for every juror to read. They called witnesses, attorneys who had watched from the windows, the court clerk who had recognized Crawford immediately, Detective Webb who had arrived to find his district attorney in handcuffs. Marshall testified in his own defense. He claimed good faith. He claimed training deficiencies. He claimed he couldn't have known who Crawford was because no one had showed him photographs of county officials. The prosecutor's response was 4 sentences. His picture is in the courthouse lobby. It's on the county website. It's been on local news for 4 years. You didn't know because you didn't look. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing came 6 weeks later. The judge reviewed Marshall's social media history, his hiring failures, his 93 days of authority exercised without accountability. You wore a badge for 3 months. In that time, you demonstrated that no amount of training would have corrected the bias you brought to this job. You saw a black man outside a courthouse and assumed he was a criminal. You ignored every piece of evidence that contradicted your assumption. You filed false reports to justify your conduct. She paused. 18 months federal custody. 3 years supervised release. Permanent revocation of law enforcement certification. Marshall was led away. His career had lasted 93 days. His consequences would last a lifetime. The civil settlement came faster. Franklin County's insurance carrier calculated the exposure. Bodycam footage of a DA being handcuffed outside his own courthouse. FBI recordings, national news coverage, a documented pattern of negligent hiring. They settled for $12 million within 4 months. Crawford accepted the settlement. He kept $7 million for his family, college funds for his children, security for his retirement. The remaining $5 million he donated to the Franklin County Wrongful Conviction Legal Fund, an organization he had supported since his public defender days. This money represents failure, he said at the press conference announcing the donation. Failure to vet candidates properly. Failure to train officers adequately. Failure to recognize bias that was visible to anyone who looked. I'm using it to help people who've experienced the worst consequences of those failures. The press conference took place on the courthouse steps. The same granite. The same limestone columns. The same location where Marshall had tried to arrest him 3 months earlier. But this time, Crawford announced something else. A police reform initiative funded jointly by the settlement and county resources. Enhanced vetting protocols. Mandatory bias training. Social media review for all candidates. External oversight of hiring practices. The reforms were implemented within 6 months. 2 other officers were terminated when their own social media histories were reviewed under the new protocols. The department's culture began to shift, slowly, imperfectly, but measurably. Crawford ran for re-election the following year. His opponent tried to frame him as anti-police. The voters disagreed. He won with 78%, the largest margin in county history. Kevin Marshall completed his sentence at Federal Correctional Institution Petersburg. He was released 11 months ago. His application for employment at a private security firm was denied. His application at a retail store was denied when the background check revealed his conviction. He currently works at a warehouse distribution center 60 miles from Franklin County. Lawrence Crawford still arrives at the courthouse early most mornings. He still takes calls on the steps when the weather permits. He still wears casual blazers before changing into his court attire. The only difference is the small addition to his morning routine. Before stepping outside, he clips his DA badge to his lapel. Visible. Unmistakable. A reminder of what assumptions cost.
Stay right there. Don't move. Why are you in this community?
I live here. Just trying to get home.
Then where's your proof? Residents carry access.
What kind of proof are you looking for?
Because people like you don't usually belong back here.
All right. Raymond Donovan, new chief of police, Westbrook PD.
The gate arm stayed down. The resident access system had malfunctioned, which meant everyone entering the Preserve at Stone Ridge needed clearance from the moonlighting officer working private security that Sunday evening. Officer Tyler Brennan had a list. He had a radio. He had every tool necessary to verify that Raymond Donovan, the black man in the Mercedes waiting patiently at the entrance, owned the $2.1 million home at 47 Stonebridge Lane. He used none of them. Instead, he used 4 words that would end his career. People like you don't belong here. What Brennan didn't know, couldn't know, because he hadn't bothered to check, was that the man he was profiling had just been appointed Westbrook's first black police chief, and he started Monday. The preserve at Stone Ridge occupied 340 acres of prime Georgia real estate, a gated enclave where homes started at $1.2 million and climbed past $3 million. Stone pillars flanked the entrance, wrought iron gates curved in elegant arcs. A gatehouse built to resemble a small Georgian manor controlled access to the winding roads beyond, where manicured lawns stretched toward houses that politicians and surgeons and tech executives called home. Raymond Donovan had moved here 3 weeks ago. The timing was deliberate. He wanted to settle in before the announcement, learn the neighborhood as a resident rather than a title. His wife Patricia had found the house, 5 bedrooms, pool in back, a study where he could finally display 24 years of commendations, certificates, and the Medal of Valor he had earned pulling hostages from a bank robbery in 2015. 24 years in law enforcement, former captain at Atlanta PD, master's degree in criminal justice from Georgia State, 2 tours in Iraq with the Marine Corps before that. He had commanded units, trained officers, testified before city councils, and rebuilt departments with more problems than Westbrook had ever seen. 5 days ago, the Westbrook City Council had voted unanimously to appoint him police chief, first black chief in the department's 85-year history. His photo had been distributed to every officer, posted in every precinct, included in a department-wide email announcing the transition. Brennan had apparently missed all of it. The Sunday evening sun cast long shadows across the gatehouse as Donovan's Mercedes approached. He and Patricia had spent the afternoon at dinner, a quiet celebration, just the 2 of them, marking the end of his first week in the new role. The gate arm should have risen automatically when his transponder pinged the sensor. It didn't. Donovan pulled to a stop. Through the windshield, he could see an officer in the gatehouse, not community security, but a cop in full Westbrook PD uniform, moonlighting for extra income. Common practice. Donovan had worked plenty of secondary employment himself in his younger years. The officer emerged, white, mid-30s, stocky build. His nameplate read Brennan. The Axon body, too, on his chest was already recording, capturing the Mercedes, the gate, the black man behind the wheel in a casual polo shirt. Brennan approached the driver's side window with a gait that Donovan recognized immediately. Weight forward, shoulders squared, the walk of someone who had already made assumptions. "Stay right there, don't move." Brennan's hand rested near his belt. "Why are you in this community?" Donovan's window was already down. The evening air carried the sound of insects, distant sprinklers, the low hum of his idling engine. "I live here, just trying to get home." Brennan's eyes moved across the Mercedes, the interior, Patricia in the passenger seat. His expression didn't change. "Then where's your proof? Residents carry access." Donovan kept his hands visible on the steering wheel. 24 years had taught him exactly how these encounters could escalate. "The gate system seems to be down. That's why I'm stopped here." Brennan stepped closer. The Bodycam frame tightened. "What kind of proof are you looking for?" The officer's lip curled. The camera caught it clearly. "Because people like you don't usually belong back here."
Patricia Donovan's hand moved slowly toward her purse. Her phone was inside. 26 years married to a cop had taught her when a situation was about to go wrong. This one had gone wrong the moment Brennan opened his mouth. "People like me," Raymond's voice remained level. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means I need to verify you actually live here before I let you through." Brennan pulled a clipboard from under his arm, the resident list, alphabetized, updated weekly. Name: Raymond Donovan, 47 Stonebridge Lane. Brennan didn't look at the list. He held it at his side, the pages ruffling slightly in the evening breeze, and kept his eyes fixed on the man in the Mercedes. "You got ID?" "I do." "Let's see it." Raymond reached slowly toward his back pocket. Brennan's hand moved to his holster, not drawing, but resting. The body cam captured the position. "Easy," Brennan said. "Slow." Raymond produced his wallet. He removed his driver's license and held it through the window. Brennan took it, examined it for 3 seconds, then handed it back. "This doesn't prove you live here." "It has my address on it, 47 Stonebridge Lane, same address I just gave you." "Could be fake. Could be an old address. I need resident verification." "You have a resident list in your hand." Brennan glanced down at the clipboard as if seeing it for the first time. He didn't flip through the pages. He didn't check page 4, where Donovan Raymond was listed in clear type alongside his address, vehicle registration, and the photo taken during move-in processing 3 weeks prior. "This list is for confirmed residents. I don't know you." Patricia's phone was recording now. She held it low, angled toward the window, capturing Brennan's face and voice. The gatehouse security camera above them recorded a wider angle, the Mercedes, the officer, the gate arm that remained stubbornly down. "Officer," Raymond's tone shifted slightly, still calm but with an edge that Patricia recognized, the voice he used when patience was being tested. "I've given you my name. I've given you my address. I've shown you my ID. The information matches. You have a list that will confirm everything I've told you. What else do you need?" Brennan leaned closer to the window. His face filled the body cam frame. "What I need is for you to explain how someone like you affords a house in this neighborhood." The words hung in the evening air. Somewhere behind them, another car had pulled up to the gate, a white couple in a BMW, waiting, watching. "Someone like me." "You heard me." Raymond looked at his wife. Her phone was steady. Her expression was set. "My name is Raymond Donovan. I'm the chief of police for Westbrook PD. I start Monday. You can verify that with a single phone call. You can check your list. You can radio dispatch. Or you can keep standing here making assumptions about who belongs in this neighborhood." Brennan's expression didn't change. He didn't reach for his radio. He didn't look at the list. "Sure you are." A smile spread across his face, the smirk of someone who had heard every excuse and believed none of them. "And I'm the governor. You got any other stories?" He stepped back from the window. His hand moved to his shoulder mic. "Dispatch, this is Brennan. I've got a suspicious individual at the Stone Ridge Gatehouse refusing to verify residence, requesting backup." Patricia's phone kept recording, the body cam kept rolling, and Raymond Donovan sat motionless behind the wheel of his own car, denied entry to his own neighborhood, watching an officer who had no idea what Monday would bring. The backup call changed everything. Raymond had dealt with difficult officers before. He had de-escalated encounters that carried more tension than a gate dispute at a suburban community. But Brennan had just elevated a civil matter into an official police response, documented on Bodycam with backup en route. The next few minutes would determine careers. "Officer Brennan." Raymond kept his hands on the steering wheel, visible through the windshield. "I'm going to reach for my credentials. They're in my jacket pocket. I'm telling you this so there's no misunderstanding. Don't move. I'm the chief of police. My credentials will verify. I said don't move." Brennan's hand was on his weapon now, not hovering, gripping. "Keep your hands where I can see them." Patricia's voice came from the passenger seat, quiet but clear enough for every recording device to capture. "Ray, don't." "Ma'am, stay out of this." "He's telling you the truth. He's the new police chief. We just moved here 3 weeks ago." "And I'm supposed to believe that?" Brennan's attention shifted to Patricia. The body cam caught her phone, still raised, still recording. "Put that down." "No. Ma'am, I'm ordering you to stop recording. I'm a civilian in a vehicle on private property. You have no authority to order me to do anything." She was right. Brennan knew she was right. His jaw tightened. The body cam captured the frustration spreading across his face, the look of someone losing control of a situation they thought they owned. Raymond spoke again, calm, measured, the voice of a man who had commanded officers, negotiated with hostage-takers, testified under cross-examination. I'm going to reach for my credentials now, slowly. If you want to verify who I am, this is how we do it. His right hand moved from the steering wheel toward his jacket, slow, deliberate, every motion calculated for the cameras. Brennan drew his weapon. The Glock cleared the holster and leveled at Raymond's chest. Patricia gasped. The phone in her hand shook but kept recording. Hands on the wheel, now! Raymond complied. His hands returned to 10 and 2. His expression didn't change. You just drew a weapon on an unarmed man reaching for identification. You were making a furtive movement. I told you exactly what I was doing. I don't know what you were reaching for. My police credentials, which I announced on camera. The couple in the BMW behind them had stepped out of their vehicle. The woman had her phone raised. The man was speaking urgently into his cell. Other residents had emerged from homes near the entrance, drawn by the flashing lights that Brennan hadn't activated, but somehow sensing something wrong at their gate. Sirens approached. Backup was 3 minutes out. Raymond sat motionless. Patricia held her phone steady. Brennan kept his weapon trained on a man whose only crime was driving home in the wrong skin. When backup arrives, Raymond said, I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember that you had a list with my name on it. You had a radio to verify my employment. You had every opportunity to resolve this professionally. You chose this instead. Shut up. You chose to assume I was lying. You chose to assume I didn't belong. You chose to draw your weapon on a man reaching for ID after announcing exactly what he was doing. I said, shut up. And you chose to do all of this on camera. Blue lights reflected off the gatehouse stone. 2 patrol cars turned onto the access road, approaching fast. Brennan's weapon hand trembled. The body cam recorded every vibration. When your sergeant gets here, Raymond said quietly, ask him to describe the new police chief. Ask him what I look like. Then look at the man you've been pointing a gun at for the last 3 minutes. Sergeant Michael Torres stepped out of the lead patrol car with 17 years of experience telling him something was very wrong. The scene didn't match the call. A Mercedes stopped at a residential gate. A well-dressed couple inside, the woman recording, the man sitting with his hands on the steering wheel. An officer with his weapon drawn, posture rigid, face flushed. Residents gathering at the perimeter. No visible threat, no erratic behavior, nothing that justified a firearm. Torres approached with his hand raised, signaling Brennan to lower his weapon. Brennan, what's going on? Suspicious individual, refused to verify residence, made a sudden movement. Torres looked at the Mercedes, at the man behind the wheel, at the face he had seen in department emails, on bulletin boards, in the announcement that had circulated 5 days ago. His stomach dropped. Brennan, Torres's voice changed, quiet, urgent. Holster your weapon. Sarge, this guy claims he's... Holster your weapon, now! Something in Torres's tone cut through Brennan's certainty. He lowered the Glock. He slid it back into the holster. He looked at his sergeant with confusion spreading across his face. Torres walked to the Mercedes. He positioned himself between Brennan and the driver's window, his back to the body cam, his voice low but audible. Chief Donovan, I'm Sergeant Michael Torres. I apologize for... Chief! Brennan's voice cracked. No, that's not... Nobody told me. Torres turned. His expression carried something Brennan had never seen directed at him. Contempt mixed with exhaustion. The look of a man watching a career end in real time. His picture has been posted in the precinct for a week. It was in the department email. It was on the news. I haven't been in the station. "You're wearing your body cam, Brennan. You're on duty. You should have checked in." Raymond opened his door and stepped out. He was taller than he had appeared through the window, 6'2", broad shoulders, the build of a man who had served 2 tours carrying combat gear through Iraqi streets. He adjusted his jacket. He didn't reach for his credentials. There was no longer any need. "Chief Donovan," Torres extended his hand. "Welcome to Westbrook. I wish the circumstances were different." He shook it. His grip was firm. His expression was unreadable. "We'll discuss those circumstances Monday, Sergeant." He looked at Brennan. The body cam was still rolling, capturing the officer's face, pale now, the aggression drained, replaced by the dawning comprehension of catastrophic error. "Officer Brennan, you had a resident list with my name on it. Did you check it?" No answer. "You had a radio to verify my employment with the department. Did you use it?" Silence. "You drew your weapon on an unarmed man who told you exactly what he was reaching for. You called for backup on a resident trying to enter his own neighborhood. You told me that people like me don't belong here." Brennan's mouth opened. Nothing came out. "Monday, morning, my office, 8 a.m. Raymond turned to Patricia, who had stepped out of the Mercedes. Her phone was lowered now, the recording saved, the evidence preserved. He put his arm around her shoulder. "Sergeant Torres, please see that the gate is opened. We'd like to go home." Torres nodded to the second officer, who moved to the gatehouse control panel. The arm rose. The path was clear. Raymond guided Patricia back to the Mercedes. They got in. The engine hummed. As they pulled through the gate, Patricia looked back at Brennan, standing frozen in the evening light, his sergeant beside him, his career behind him. "What happens Monday?" she asked. "He finds out what accountability looks like."
The investigation began before sunrise Monday morning. Chief Donovan arrived at headquarters at 6 a.m., 2 hours before his scheduled meeting with Brennan, 3 hours before the formal start of his first full week. He met with Internal Affairs Commander Lieutenant Diana Reeves in his new office, the boxes still unpacked, the commendations still unhung. He handed her a flash drive containing Patricia's phone footage. He provided the timestamp for the gatehouse security recordings. He requested Brennan's complete personnel file. "I want everything," he said. "Prior complaints, disciplinary history, secondary employment records, all of it." Lieutenant Reeves had served in IA for 12 years. She had seen pattern cases before, officers whose behavior was obvious to everyone except the leadership that enabled them. She suspected this would be another. She was right. Officer Tyler Brennan had served Westbrook PD for 11 years. His file contained 9 formal complaints of racial profiling, 9 citizens who had documented encounters similar to what Donovan experienced, stopped without cause, questioned without basis, treated as suspects for existing in spaces where Brennan decided they didn't belong. 9 complaints, 0 sustained findings, 0 disciplinary actions. The complaints had been handled by previous leadership, a chief who retired quietly, a deputy chief who transferred out, supervisors who had documented the allegations and done nothing with them. The pattern was clear to anyone willing to see it. Previous leadership hadn't been willing. The digital forensics uncovered more. Brennan's department phone contained text threads with 2 other officers, Corporal James Whitfield and Officer Nathan Drake. The conversations spanned 3 years. The content was explicit. Jokes about hunting in affluent neighborhoods, complaints about black families ruining property values, strategies for stops that would be difficult to challenge, a running tally of catches, minorities detained, questioned, humiliated, then released without charges. One message, sent by Brennan 8 months prior, stood out. "Got another one at Stone Ridge last night. N-word in a Lexus. Made him wait 30 men for verification. You should have seen his face." The FBI was notified within 48 hours. Civil rights violations under color of law. conspiracy to deprive citizens of constitutional rights. The investigation expanded from one officer to 3, from one department to a pattern that federal prosecutors would later describe as systematic racial terrorism disguised as policing. Brennan's meeting with Chief Donovan lasted 11 minutes. He arrived at 8 a.m. as ordered. He sat in the chair across from the desk where his new chief, the man he had profiled, threatened, and held at gunpoint, reviewed his personnel file. 9 complaints, Donovan said. 9 citizens who told the department exactly who you are. Leadership did nothing. Brennan didn't respond. I'm not previous leadership. Donovan closed the file. You're terminated effective immediately. Your badge, weapon, and department credentials will be collected before you leave this building. You're barred from the premises pending the outcome of criminal investigation. You will not contact any current department employees. You will not discuss this matter publicly. Chief, if I could just explain. There's nothing to explain. Your Bodycam recorded everything. My wife recorded everything. The gatehouse camera recorded everything. You drew your weapon on an unarmed man who told you he was reaching for identification. You called for backup on a resident entering his own neighborhood. You told me I didn't belong in a community where I own a home. Donovan stood. You knew exactly what you were doing. You've been doing it for 11 years. The only difference is that this time you did it to someone who could stop you. Brennan was escorted from the building by 2 officers who had worked alongside him for years. Neither spoke to him, neither met his eyes. His badge was collected at the front desk. His weapon was logged into evidence. His career ended before 9 a.m.
The federal charges came 6 weeks later. Brennan, Whitfield, and Drake were indicted together. Conspiracy to violate civil rights, deprivation of rights under color of law, filing false reports. The evidence was overwhelming. The text messages alone would have been enough. Combined with Bodycam footage, witness testimony, and a decade of documented complaints, the case was airtight. Brennan pleaded guilty to avoid trial. His cooperation earned him a reduced recommendation, but the judge wasn't interested in leniency. You wore a badge, she said during sentencing. You swore an oath, and for 11 years you used that authority to terrorize citizens based on the color of their skin. The only reason you're standing here today is because you finally targeted someone with the power to expose you. 3 years federal prison, 5 years supervised release, permanent revocation of law enforcement certification. His name entered into the National Decertification Index, ensuring he would never wear a badge again in any state. Whitfield received 2 years. Drake received 18 months. Both lost their certifications. Both lost their pensions. The civil settlement came faster than the criminal case. Westbrook's insurance carrier calculated the exposure. Bodycam footage of an officer drawing on the police chief, a documented pattern of racial profiling, 9 prior complaints ignored by leadership. They settled for $200,000 within 4 months. Donovan accepted the settlement. He donated every dollar to police reform initiatives, bias training programs, community oversight boards, scholarship funds for minority candidates pursuing law enforcement careers. This money represents failure, he said at the press conference announcing the donation. Failure by the department I now lead, failure by leadership that allowed this pattern to continue for over a decade. I'm using it to build something better. The reforms he implemented were comprehensive. Mandatory bias training for all officers, renewed annually. Independent review of all civilian complaints, with findings reported to a civilian oversight board. Body camera activation required for all citizen contacts, with automatic audit of footage following any detention or use of force. He created an early intervention system that flagged officers accumulating multiple complaints, the system that would have identified Brennan years earlier if anyone had bothered to build it. The changes drew national attention. Donovan testified before a state legislative committee considering police reform. He was interviewed by national news outlets. He became, reluctantly, a symbol of accountability, the chief who cleaned house because he had experienced firsthand what happened when no one did. 3 years later, Westbrook PD has recorded its lowest complaint rate in department history. Citizen satisfaction surveys have improved by 40%. Recruitment of minority officers has tripled. Tyler Brennan completed his sentence at Federal Correctional Institution JSUP. He was released 8 months ago. His application for employment at a private security firm was denied after a background check revealed his decertification. He currently works at an auto parts warehouse 40 miles from Westbrook. He has not spoken publicly about the incident. Raymond Donovan still lives at 47 Stonebridge Lane. The gate system was repaired the week after the incident. His transponder works perfectly now. Patricia still has the video on her phone. She's never deleted it. She's never watched it again either. "I don't need to," she told a reporter who asked. "I remember every second." The gatehouse security camera footage is used in Westbrook's bias training program now. New recruits watch it during their first week. The approach, the assumptions, the weapon drawn on an unarmed man reaching for identification. They watch Brennan's face when the sergeant says the words Chief Donovan. They watch a career end in real time. And they learn what Raymond Donovan learned during his first week on the job, that a badge can protect you or expose you, depending on how you use it. Brennan used his as a weapon. Donovan used his to build something better.
Hands off the vehicle, step back.
What are you doing in this lot?
I'm making a phone call. Is there a problem?
Yeah, we got calls about somebody casing cars.
Why do you think I'm the one?
Because you don't belong here.
I'm Special Agent Marcus Thompson, FBI. My supervisor's been listening to all this.
You special agent.
Badge number...
The body cam was recording. The phone line was open. And the FBI supervisor, listening to every word, had already dispatched agents before Officer Derek Rawlings even touched his holster. What this cop didn't know, couldn't know, was that the black man he had just ordered away from a stolen Audi at gunpoint was a 12-year federal agent assigned to the Civil Rights Division, the same division that prosecutes cops exactly like him. 15 years in federal prison, badge stripped, pension gone, career erased, and every second of his destruction was documented by his own camera while his victim's boss listened live. The Oakdale Crossing Shopping Plaza occupied 12 acres of prime real estate in one of Atlanta's wealthiest suburbs. Luxury SUVs and European sedans filled the parking lot in neat rows. The Saturday afternoon sun reflected off polished storefront windows, Neiman Marcus, Louis Vuitton, a Tesla dealership at the far end. This was the kind of place where valets remembered your name and security guards nodded politely as you passed. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. But if you're new here, hit that like and subscribe button. These stories needs to be shared, and your support helps expose the truth. Special Agent Marcus Thompson had been coming here for 3 years, ever since he transferred to the Atlanta field office. His dry cleaner was here. His barber was 2 blocks away. His Audi Q7, black, paid off, registered in his name since 2019, sat in the same parking spot he always used, 3rd row from the entrance, under the shade of an ornamental oak. 12 years with the FBI. Specialization in public corruption and civil rights violations, commendations from 3 directors. Before that, 4 years as a U.S. Army military police officer, 2 deployments, honorable discharge. Before that, Howard University Law School, top 10% of his class, law review, recruited by the Bureau before he even took the bar exam. He had spent his career investigating officers who abused their authority. He knew the patterns, the pretextual stops, the fabricated suspicions, the assumption that certain people didn't belong in certain places. He had built cases against cops in 6 states. He had testified in federal court more times than he could count. He had seen bodycam footage that would make most people sick. None of it prepared him for being on the other side of the lens. Thompson stood beside his driver's side door, phone pressed to his ear, finishing a weekend check-in with Deputy Director Angela Chen. Routine call, case updates, administrative details. He was wearing a fitted navy polo, khakis, clean fade. His posture was relaxed. His credentials were in the center console, 6 feet away. "Anything else before Monday?" Chen asked through the phone. That's when the patrol car pulled into the lot. Thompson noticed it immediately. The speed was wrong, too fast for a casual pass-through. The cruiser cut across 2 lanes and angled toward his row. It stopped 20 feet behind his Audi, positioned to block any exit. "Hold on," Thompson said quietly. "I've got a local unit approaching." "Approaching you?" "Looks like it." The officer who stepped out was white, mid-30s, average build. His nameplate read Rawlings. His hand moved to his holster before his feet hit the pavement. "Stay on the line," Chen said. Her voice had shifted, no longer administrative, alert. "I'm not going anywhere." Rawlings crossed the distance in aggressive strides. The Axon Body 2 on his chest captured everything: the parking lot, the Audi, the black man in the navy polo standing motionless beside the driver door. The wide-angle lens created mild fisheye distortion at the edges, but the center of the frame was crystal clear. Thompson lowered the phone to his side. He didn't hang up. He didn't put it in his pocket. He held it loosely, microphone pointed outward, the line still open. "Hands off the vehicle." Rawlings was 3 feet away now. "Step back. What are you doing in this lot?" Thompson met his eyes, calm, controlled, unflinching. "I'm making a phone call. Is there a problem?" Rawlings' hand tightened on his holster. The bodycam captured the movement, fingers curling around the grip, thumb resting on the retention strap. His weight shifted forward, aggressive, predatory. "Yeah, we got calls about somebody casing cars." Thompson didn't move. His phone remained at his side, the line to Deputy Director Chen still open. 1,400 miles away, in the J. Edgar Hoover building in Washington, Chen was already reaching for her desk phone to contact the Atlanta field office. "Why do you think I'm the one?" The question was measured, neutral, the tone of a man who had conducted hundreds of interviews and knew exactly how to let silence do its work. Rawlings' lip curled. The bodycam caught the sneer in high definition. "Because you don't belong here." 4 words. The officer didn't elaborate, didn't need to. The meaning was clear to everyone who would later watch the footage. The prosecutors, the jury, the millions who would see it replayed on news broadcasts across the country. Thompson tilted his head slightly. "I'm Special Agent Marcus Thompson, FBI. My credentials are in the vehicle. My supervisor has been listening to this entire conversation." He raised the phone slowly, deliberately, so the bodycam could see it. "Badge number and precinct, now." Something flickered across Rawlings' face. The bodycam caught it, a microsecond of doubt, quickly buried under 11 years of habit. He had heard claims like this before. Everyone was somebody when they got stopped. Everyone had a lawyer, a connection, a reason why the rules didn't apply to them. He didn't believe it. "Sure you are." Rawlings drew his weapon. The Glock cleared the holster and leveled at Thompson's chest. "Hands where I can see them. On the vehicle. Now." Thompson didn't flinch. His hands rose slowly, phone still in his right, left palm open and empty. He turned and placed both palms flat on the warm metal of the Audi's roof. The position was familiar. He had seen it from the other side countless times. "You're making a mistake," he said. His voice remained level. "A federal crime." "Shut up." Rawlings moved closer. The body cam tightened, Thompson's back filling the center, his hands visible on the roof, his head turned just enough to keep the officer in peripheral view. Then Rawlings leaned in. His mouth moved close to Thompson's ear. The body cam's microphone was 6 inches away, designed to capture exactly these moments, the whispered threats, the quiet cruelties that officers thought no one would ever hear. He said a single word. The audio technicians who later enhanced the footage confirmed it within hours. A racial slur, barely above a breath, delivered with the casual contempt of someone who had said it many times before. 1,400 miles away, Deputy Director Angela Chen heard it clearly through the open phone line. "I have agents en route," she said, her voice cutting through Thompson's speaker, loud enough for Rawlings to hear. "Officer, you are being directed to holster your weapon and step away from Special Agent Thompson immediately." Rawlings froze. The body cam captured his sudden stillness, the Glock still raised, his breathing audible on the microphone, his eyes cutting toward the phone in Thompson's hand. "Who the hell is that?" Deputy Director Angela Chen, FBI, Headquarters. Thompson's voice hadn't changed, still calm, still controlled. "She's been listening since before you got out of your car." The sound of sirens reached the parking lot, distant at first, then closer, then unmistakable. Rawlings' weapon hand began to tremble. The body cam recorded every vibration. The first vehicle to arrive wasn't local. A black Chevrolet Suburban with federal plates cut across the parking lot at speed, followed by a second. They angled to block the exits, not Rawlings' cruiser, but the lanes leading out of the plaza. Standard containment protocol. 4 agents emerged, dark suits, credentials visible, hands near weapons but not drawn. Special Agent in Charge David Okonkwo approached first. He had supervised Thompson for 3 years. He had received Deputy Director Chen's call 90 seconds after Rawlings drew his weapon. "Officer," Okonkwo's voice carried across the parking lot, "lower your weapon, step back from the agent." Rawlings hadn't moved. His Glock was still raised, still pointed at Thompson's back. The body cam captured his hesitation, the rapid calculations of a man realizing his situation had fundamentally changed. "This is a local matter." "This is a federal agent." Okonkwo stopped 10 feet away. His credentials were in his left hand, held high enough for the body cam to record. "Federal Bureau of Investigation, Special Agent, Civil Rights Division." He looked at Rawlings one final time. The body cam was still running. It would capture Thompson's words with the same clarity it had captured everything else. "I've prosecuted 37 officers for civil rights violations. You're number 38.
The FBI's investigation moved with unusual speed. The body cam footage was in federal hands within 2 hours, downloaded, preserved, and flagged as primary evidence. The phone recording from Deputy Director Chen's line was already archived in Washington, time-stamped and authenticated. But the footage only told part of the story. The investigation would reveal the rest. Officer Derek Rawlings had served with Oakdale Police Department for 11 years. His personnel file was unremarkable on its surface. No major commendations, no formal disciplinary actions, a career of apparent mediocrity that had allowed him to operate without scrutiny. The complaints told a different story. 22 formal complaints had been filed against Rawlings over his career. 22 citizens had documented concerns serious enough to put in writing. 14 involved traffic stops of black drivers. 6 involved allegations of excessive force. 2 involved racial slurs, heard by witnesses, reported immediately, dismissed for lack of physical evidence. 22 complaints, 0 sustained findings, 0 disciplinary actions. The FBI subpoenaed Rawlings's departmental records, patrol logs, and personal devices within 72 hours. What they found was systematic. His patrol car's GPS history showed a pattern. For 3 years, Rawlings had been logging off duty at his precinct, then driving his personal vehicle to affluent suburbs outside his jurisdiction: Oakdale, Buckhead, Sandy Springs, neighborhoods with expensive homes and expensive cars, and black residents who could afford them. His mobile data terminal searches told the same story. He had been running plates on luxury vehicles driven by black motorists, dozens of queries with no corresponding incident reports, no calls for service, no documented reason for the searches. His personal phone contained text messages that federal prosecutors would later describe as a roadmap of racial animus. Conversations with other officers, jokes about hunting in wealthy neighborhoods, complaints about black families taking over areas that used to be nice. A group chat called Thin Blue Line, where Rawlings and 6 colleagues shared memes, complaints, and strategies for stops that would be difficult to challenge. One text, sent 8 months before the Thompson incident, was particularly damning. Got another one in Oakdale today. N in a Porsche. Made him sit on the curb for 40 minutes while I verified registration. Love watching them squirm. The FBI identified 14 victims from Rawlings's pattern. Men and women who had been stopped, detained, questioned, and released without charges. Most had filed no complaints. They had assumed nothing would come of it, that the system would protect its own. Now, the system had turned. The Department of Justice authorized federal charges within 3 weeks: deprivation of rights under color of law, assault with a deadly weapon against a federal officer, filing false police reports, conspiracy to violate civil rights, a charge that expanded to include 2 other officers in the text chain who had participated in coordinated stops. The Oakdale police chief resigned before the indictments were announced. The deputy chief followed. Internal Affairs launched reviews of every complaint filed in the previous decade, not just against Rawlings, but against every officer named in the group chat. Agent Thompson gave his statement to federal prosecutors over 2 days. He walked them through every second of the encounter: the approach, the weapon, the slur, the phone call that had captured it all. His testimony was clinical, precise, devastating. The prosecutors asked him how he had remained so calm. He said, "I've seen that footage before. Different officers, different victims, same pattern. I knew exactly what was happening. I knew exactly how it would end." The Bodycam footage was released to the public 6 weeks after the incident. It accumulated 40 million views in 72 hours.
The federal trial took place in the Northern District of Georgia. The courtroom was filled to capacity every day. Journalists, civil rights advocates, law enforcement officials monitoring the proceedings, and citizens who had driven hours to witness what many called a reckoning. The prosecution's case was built on synchronized evidence. They played the Bodycam footage on the first day, letting the jury watch the entire encounter without commentary. Then they played Deputy Director Chen's phone recording, the same moments captured from Thompson's side, the slur even clearer through the phone's microphone than it had been on the Bodycam. They presented the shopping plaza's security footage, a wide shot showing the parking lot, the Audi, the patrol car's aggressive approach, Thompson standing motionless beside his vehicle, Rawlings closing distance with his hand already on his holster. They presented witness testimony, a 63-year-old retired teacher who had been walking to her car when the stop began, a college student who had recorded 30 seconds on her phone before fleeing to her vehicle, a shopping plaza security guard who had watched from the Tesla dealership entrance, too uncertain to intervene. They presented the digital forensics, 3 years of GPS data, hundreds of plate searches with no documented purpose, the text messages displayed on screens large enough for the jury to read every word. 5 other black men testified about their encounters with Rawlings. A surgeon stopped while driving to the hospital, an attorney detained for 40 minutes during a lunch break, a retired military officer questioned about the ownership of his own vehicle. Each story followed the same pattern. Each man described the same phrases, the same posture, the same assumption that they didn't belong. The defense strategy collapsed under the weight of documentation. Rawlings' attorney argued misunderstanding, claimed his client had been following department protocols for suspicious vehicle reports. The prosecutor responded by playing the Bodycam audio. "You don't belong here." "What protocol," the prosecutor asked, "instructs officers to determine who belongs in a public parking lot based on race?" The defense had no answer. Rawlings testified in his own defense. It lasted 4 hours. Under cross-examination, he claimed the text messages were jokes taken out of context. He claimed the plate searches were routine. He claimed he couldn't remember saying the slur captured on 2 separate recordings. The prosecutor played the audio again, then a third time. "Do you need to hear it once more, Officer Rawlings?" The jury deliberated for 4 hours. They returned with guilty verdicts on all counts. Rawlings stood motionless as the verdicts were read. The courtroom remained silent. There was no outburst, no dramatic reaction, just the mechanical process of justice documenting its conclusions. The judge scheduled sentencing for 6 weeks later. She denied bail, citing flight risk and the severity of the crimes. "The defendant has demonstrated a pattern of conduct that represents a fundamental betrayal of public trust," she said. "He used his badge as a weapon against the citizens he swore to protect. The court sees no reason to believe that pattern would not continue if he were released." Rawlings was led from the courtroom in handcuffs. His badge had been surrendered weeks earlier. His pension had been frozen. His 11-year career had ended in a parking lot, documented by his own camera, witnessed by an FBI supervisor 1,400 miles away. Agent Thompson sat in the gallery throughout the trial. He never testified emotionally. He never celebrated the verdict. When journalists asked for his reaction afterward, he gave the same answer he had given throughout the case. "This is what accountability looks like. Nothing more, nothing less." The sentencing hearing drew the largest crowd of any proceeding in the case. Victim impact statements stretched across 3 hours. Men who had been stopped by Rawlings described the fear, the humiliation, the lasting damage of being treated as criminals in their own neighborhoods. The surgeon spoke of missing a surgery because Rawlings had detained him for 45 minutes over a suspicious Mercedes. A patient's procedure had been delayed. Complications followed. The attorney described the terror of having a weapon drawn during a traffic stop on his way to court. He had been late for a hearing. The judge had threatened sanctions before he could explain. The retired colonel talked about calling his wife during a stop, telling her which intersection he was at, just in case. "In case of what?" the prosecutor asked. "In case I didn't come home." Thompson did not give an impact statement. He had never been physically harmed. He sat in the gallery as he had throughout the trial, his expression unchanged. The judge addressed Rawlings directly before delivering the sentence. "You swore an oath to serve and protect all citizens equally. Instead, you used your authority to terrorize people based on the color of their skin. You drew your weapon on a federal agent because you could not imagine that a black man belonged in an affluent neighborhood. You did this not once, but dozens of times over the course of years, and your department did nothing." She paused. 15 years in federal prison, no possibility of parole. The civil settlement came 4 months later. The county, facing overwhelming evidence of systemic failure, agreed to pay $8.5 million. $3.5 million to Thompson, the remainder divided among 14 other documented victims. The settlement included no admission of wrongdoing, but the reforms attached to it spoke louder than any legal language. The Oakdale Police Department underwent complete restructuring. An independent oversight board was established with subpoena power. All officers were required to activate body cameras for any civilian contact. Database searches were logged and audited monthly. Complaints triggered automatic external review. The 2 officers named in the Rawlings text chain were terminated and charged. One pleaded guilty to conspiracy. The other awaits trial. Thompson returned to work within weeks of the incident. He continues to serve in the Civil Rights Division, investigating the same patterns of abuse he experienced that Saturday afternoon. He has given interviews sparingly, always returning to the same themes. "Documentation saved me," he told one reporter. "My credentials mattered, but the phone call mattered more. Deputy Director Chen heard everything in real time. There was nothing for Rawlings to fabricate, no report he could write that would contradict what she witnessed." He paused. Most people don't have an FBI supervisor on the line. That's why body cameras matter. That's why civilian recordings matter. The only thing that changes this pattern is evidence they can't deny. The Bodycam footage is now used in federal law enforcement training. Agencies across the country show it as an example of how bias manifests in split-second decisions. The approach, the assumption, the phrase that revealed everything. "You don't belong here." 4 words that cost a man his badge, his pension, and 15 years of his life. Derek Rawlings is currently incarcerated at Federal Correctional Institution Jessup in Georgia. He will be eligible for release in 2039. His appeals have been denied twice. Marcus Thompson still drives the same black Audi Q7. He still shops at Oakdale Crossing on Saturday afternoons. He still parks in the 3rd row under the shade of the ornamental oak. The only difference now is the decal in his rear window. Small, unobtrusive, easy to miss unless you're looking. FBI.